some final people in. Start with, for the people that haven't heard of us before, Take Care of Your Trails campaign is existing for a number of years. It's started in Scotland with the Take Care of Your Trails weekend. And at a certain moment we thought, well, the concept is so good, we should do that all over Europe and grow these trail crews and the mountain bike communities in other places as well, and pay attention to what we call trail stewardship. So do something back, do some trail maintenance, organize local rides, etc., and do something good for the community. Since 4 years, I think it's a pan-European campaign where more than 15 countries have participated in, and it's all about to encourage and promote and highlight trail stewardship, which could vary from cleaning up your trails from trash till trail maintenance, or even building new trails or a bike park. For this year, it's again a kind of special edition of Take Care of Your Trails, just like last year. We've planned a campaign for May, and it was a bit of a, we were a bit worried whether we could do a campaign anyway this year due to COVID-19. But we thought if we change the concept a little bit and not focus too much on like large events and large group of volunteers, there's still an option to have a campaign. So the focus this year will be more on the smaller groups or even individual actions. And that's what we're aiming. We still want to see a lot of those tiny pin flags on our European map with all sorts of local initiatives that showcase what the mountain bike community is capable of, how we can give back to our trails and the natural environment. But of course, we are aware, and we ask every participant to take notice of the local COVID-19 measures and obey to them. But on the other hand, it's also, we think, a really important campaign this year. We've seen during the COVID-19, we've seen an increase in mountain bike participation, in trail usage, and sometimes also trail wear. But unfortunately, in some places also more conflicts, and that have been enlarged in the media quite some time as well. So the perception of mountain biking is sometimes a bit negative. So we thought, well, this is the momentum to do something good, a positive campaign to show to everyone, not just to the mountain bike community, but also to all the people that we are working with, how powerful we can be and all the good things that we can do as local volunteers and local groups. So that's the reason why we said, no, let's go ahead with this year's campaign, not postponing again. And we hope that, well, almost in May, that some restrictions will be eased, so that groups events are possible. We've made some guidelines which have been put on the website, how to organize small events and still obeying the kind of COVID rules, so they can be found on the website. And like previous years, we also want to shine a spotlight on some of the really amazing groups and the work that they do, and individual participants. So we have a few awards, which is the Trail Advocate of the Year, both men and women, and the Outstanding Local Trail Crew, which we started last year, and we're going to do that again, so in 3 different categories. More information about that can be found on the website as well, just as the prizes, which will be announced next week. And that's for now. I think it's enough for the overview of the campaign. Let's move on. A few rules for this webinar. I guess most people will be familiar with those rules after a year full of Zoom meetings and Teams meetings. And everybody that's in this meeting, please go on mute if you haven't been that already. And we're gonna do the keynotes first, and then after the three speakers, we have some time for a Q&A. And we want to ask you to use the chat function to submit your questions, and also mention the name of the speaker to whom you are addressing those questions. We're going to make, depending on the number of questions, we're going to make a selection. So even during the sessions, you can already submit your questions. And then we're going to ask them at the last part of this webinar. Let's see. If you have some general questions about the campaign, you can ask them in the chat as well. We've got Lauren on board as well, so he can answer some of the questions directly, or we're gonna save it for later and get back to you. And as you've seen, we've recorded this session for people that couldn't attend, but are interesting to hear what has been told and what has been exchanged. And it's time for to introduce our first speaker, which is James MacKeddie. We know him for about a year right now, I think. James is involved in Trash-Free Trails, Woburn bike trails, and he's the brand manager at Medicine. He lives in the UK, and he's, if you start following him, he's really active on social media, and has done a great job for the Woburn bike trails and also in supporting the Trash-Free Trails campaign. Last year, one of the other leaders of Woburn bike trails became our Trail Advocate of the Year, but James is just as much a thriving force behind this group, and he will tell us a little bit more about. About the whole messaging and storytelling and around the community building and all the maintenance events that they are organizing in the region where they are working. I'll give the word up to James right now. Please.
I'm here.
Yeah, there he is.
Okay, so that photo of me was Christmas Day. Obviously, a lot of people have very different years last year, and I was on my own, so I decided to go and empty a car park full of litter. And I don't actually have any photos of me riding a bike, so I must get onto that. So I do a variety of things. So in the UK, I'm the Maxis brand manager. I am a volunteer at Trash-Free Trails. I've done that for, this is the 4th year I've been involved. I do some of the social media, some photography, some bits and bobs, a whole variety of things. Then with Mike Hansen, who's also on the call at Woburn Bike Trails, we've been doing that for, I think, almost 6 years now, and we maintain two local XC based trails on some private land with land managers and landowners. So it's a whole variety. My whole life effectively revolves around trails one way or another, professionally and personally, and I put a timer on because I can talk forever. So I've been asked to talk about communications, which trying to keep this succinct. I saw how many slides I've done, and there's quite a few. So I've cut this down. So there's what are you trying to say? Quite often we can get caught up with trying to overcomplicate things and actually simplifying what you're trying to say, your goal, whether you're trying to recruit people to your campaign, you're trying to get people to pick up litter, to stop digging if people are doing digging that's actually causing you more harm than good. Whatever the message you're trying to get across, the main thing with that is identifying it, but also being consistent, because if you're jumping left, right and center, people are going to just switch off. But at the same point, you need to keep it changing in terms of how you're presenting it, because otherwise you get saturated. Within that, and this is a big thing at Trash-Free Trails, it's about being inclusive. So at Trash-Free Trails, we're positive with everything we do. We're not there to point a finger. We're not there to just tell people off, because ultimately we don't know why it's happened, if it's a mistake, anything of that nature. And also, you know, it's all down to education and the people you're with. So it's about promoting positivity, whether it's digging, maintaining, helping the community in whichever way you can, and trying to actually encourage people to join your community rather than alienate them. Because at the end of the day, we're only strong if we're a community rather than a bunch of individuals. You could go to the next one, Mark. So the power of images. Here's a random selection of images, some from trail digs where we've had like great light, and the guy in yellow, we got absolutely soaked through that day, and he does on a big screen, he's got 1,000 miles there. He doesn't look like he's happy at all. Right through to images where we've got the top image of a gel packet that's from an animal. So these things can be amazing, you know, and you don't need to have a big flashy camera. You don't need to have knowledge. It's just actually taking a picture of that moment, documenting it is really important. But also it's down to what you're putting with it. So it's not simply a case of going, you have to have amazing imagery. Sometimes our best images and our best success in terms of engaging with people has been with our worst images, but actually it's been what's compelled people to actually read or think, or it's resonated with them. Mark, we could have the next. And so I say, image quality isn't everything. It's about the context. It's about what's going to resonate with people, but also making it about real world examples. It's all very well talking about yourself or what you guys are doing, but you've got to remember, not everyone's on that inner circle. People aren't used to hearing potentially terminology, but also they don't know the processes involved. They don't know that you have to have permission for certain things, that there's a timeline, that you have to reroute because of local wildlife or other things. So it's giving it context, and championing the human and championing your volunteers, because ultimately your volunteers are the people doing it. A lot of people think this stuff magically happens or everyone's getting paid, but as we know, with a lot of trail crews around the world, everyone is doing this off their own goodwill, with minimal or no funding. And to give an example, this is taken from Trash Free Trails Instagram feed. The bottom 3 images I was writing about, so I did all the copy for those and I was really happy. And Cycling Weekly put up a thing about the UCI changing their rules. That's one of the biggest posts we've had in recent times, and the engagement rate, the amount of people commenting, it was brilliant. And you sit there going, I've been working on all of this, and that was something we saw, but you never know what is going to be the thing that's going to grab someone's attention. You can post the same message 10 times and it can be on the 11th that someone actually goes, you know what, I'm going to get involved, or I'm going to make that first step and I'm going to comment, or I'm going to contact you. And ultimately that's it. It's being accessible to people and not worrying about having everything perfect, because actually sharing the information in a consumable and easy way is actually the most important thing. If I could move next one, Mark. And as we say, it's about speaking in your community's language. So you do need to know who you're speaking to. There's no point talking to people like they're thick and actually finding out they know, they're engaged, they know what's going on. But also there's no point completely filling it up with technical terms or terminology that's going to switch people off, especially if you're not explaining what it is. So there's education involved. And with that, they're showing compassion that people may not understand, or they may not be as involved, or they may not think the same as you and be as activated. Not everyone can get out on dig trails, but they want to. But people quite often, when you speak to them, be it online or in person, actually want to get involved however they can, whether it's they give a small donation or they can, you know, we've had someone even offer to come up and cook us and make us cups of teas and things, which we've unfortunately had to decline, especially with the current conditions, but it's their way of doing it. So it's people will want to do their own little thing, and it's about being accommodating to that. In terms of issues, be it here, we've got an energy gel from our Spring Trail Clean Tour in 2019. It's about how you frame it. So we're saying about positivity. It's not necessarily a case of calling out the brand and telling them that all their consumers are dreadful people and how they're ruining the planet. It's actually speaking to that brand and making them accountable, but also showing that anyone can pick things up. For example, in this instance, you know, it's not simply down to the brand, it's down to us as a collective to actually change things, because ultimately that's how things are going to change. And with that, you can lead and steer. We want you to lead and steer rather than dictate. If we're dictating and pointing the finger, there's only so much people can take of that before they're going to switch off. They want to be led and be given tools and be given opportunities, but ultimately it's allowing them to do it in their own way and putting their stamp on it, which goes back to speaking in your community's language. I can speak to my community one way. Mike's friends, for example, because I know Mike, he may have to speak to his friends in a different way for the same issue or the same message, because we are different people. We speak differently, we understand things differently, and we look at it from different eyes. We're gonna have the next one, Mark. Wow, I'm actually on time. This is incredible. I've had a timer going. So this is my final thing. Humanize it. People are amazing, and it's all too easy to forget that. It's all too easy to make us into robots, especially with, as talking with communications, be it email, be it social media, be it anything like that. It's really easy to just make it seem like this algorithm or engine that just fires stuff out and that's it. There's no person behind it. So this was for Trash Free Trails. We were shooting with Vodafone, and these were just random photos taken at the beginning, but actually they're the ones that capture people's imagination the most. They don't really care about the advert or that side of it. It's the people when, you know, you got one guy from a production company concentrating and Ross just couldn't care less. He's just having a bit of fun. And it's the fun element that I actually think we forget a lot of the time. You know, we're concentrating on our trail networks. We're working out where to place them, how to improve them, how to enhance, how to resolve issues, how to resolve conflicts with different user groups, with land managers, with land owners, with public authorities, with the list is endless. But actually, the reason we do it, and I'm speaking for myself here, obviously, but we do it because it's fun and we actually enjoy it. And it's sharing that is what it's going to take to bring other people into the community. As much as it can be hard work at times, it's actually a great time to socialize, to learn about your local area, to learn about the ecology, to learn why things are done a certain way. And when we speak on Woburn bike trails to people, the number one thing we actually do if they're trying to ask big questions is we invite them along. Now, they don't turn up and that's their choice. But the idea is to get them along, because then we can have a real conversation and we can actually talk in depth, because there's only so much you can stick on a message on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, be it in the comments or direct messaging, but also it gets a bit boring because I help run the social for both places, saying the same thing over and over again, when you could just do it in person when it's possible. So yeah, experiment, adapt, and with experiment, you'll find what works for you. You'll find your own voice. You know, it's kind of like saying, don't go on to Woburn Bike Trails or Trash Free Trails or my social media and go, right, I'll just write how you write and I'll try and take your photo like you and go, that's what I'm going to do. It's find what works for you. Find what resonates with you and actually what you enjoy. Because ultimately also, if we're going to share these stories, these messages and our work, we might as well enjoy doing it. Because otherwise, if we're not having fun, no one's going to be having fun.
Thanks a lot, James, for a really inspiring story. There are definitely people with some questions, but put them in the chat, and we're gonna ask them later on. We're gonna move on to our next guest of today, which is Will Clarke. Will is involved in developing mountain biking in Scotland, and he's currently the mountain bike and adventure tourism development coordinator, working in the region of Aberdeenshire in Scotland. And Will is also involved in the Aberdeenshire Trail Association, which was one of our project grant receivers, I think 2 years ago. A great project going on in the Aberdeenshire. And Will is going to talk a little bit more about partnerships with land managers and what kind of steps they took in the last few years, probably. It's always a lot of preparation before you actually get permission to build a new trail or to improve your trail network. And I think his example and his story is also really inspiring, because they had to cope with unauthorized trail building in the past as well. This is something that we've seen a lot during the COVID lockdowns, which in a certain way we understand, but we also know that it makes it really hard to build up a good relationship with land management agencies. And nothing is perfect, but I think the Aberdeenshire Trail Association did an amazing job in progressing this whole collaboration with their land managers. I'll give the word to Will, and
Thanks, Mark, and thanks for the invitation to talk tonight. As Mark mentioned, I deal with land managers, landowners through both aspects, both my professional role with developing mountain biking in Scotland, but primarily here to talk about my role with Aberdeenshire Trail Association and the journey they've been on for the past couple of years. But first of all, a wee bit about the region of Aberdeenshire, if you don't know it. On the next slide, is recognised as one of our emerging destinations in Scotland, so it's not quite the most well-known yet, but it's on its way. There's over 1,000 trails in the region of varying lengths and quality, but only 8 of those are actually purpose-built. The lack of purpose-built trails has fostered a culture of unauthorised building in our region. And although Scotland has a really unique access code, which allows us amazing freedoms in the outdoors, on bike and on foot, unauthorised trail building is actually against those regulations, and the unauthorised trail building causes issues for landowners around liability, wildlife, countryside management, and different things like that. So part of this was the background to us establishing Aberdeenshire Trail Association. On the next slide, you'll see a little bit of our history. We were established in 2018 as part of the Developing Mountain Biking in Scotland Aberdeenshire programme. And we're actually really lucky here in Scotland that we have some unauthorised mountain bike guidance, which basically explains ways to engage with land managers and landowners and points out solutions and strategies to help the relationship between riders and landowners. The Aberdeenshire Association is quite a simple structure of a community group with a 5-person committee and quite a large number of volunteers who help out. And the vision is, again, quite simple: to work with landowners to increase the quality of the trails and sustainability of the network. We hope that that'll create better trails, encourage people to have a healthy lifestyle, get people out in nature. And we also recognise the mountain biking benefits bring to our local community with tourists and economic benefits as well. And working with the Trail Association can help the landowners and land managers balance some of their responsibilities as well. So how does it work and how's it going? On the next slide is our approach is mainly where we adopt and maintain some of the unauthorised trails that have been built without permission. How we're doing that is through a programme of training and education. So our coordinators who organise and manage the digs have all been through some training. We've got quite an extensive programme of discussion with landowners, and we form agreements with them. We inspect the trails to see their quality and what work that needs to be done. We have insurance, we provide equipment, so anyone that shows up to our dig days doesn't have to bring their own stuff and doesn't have to worry. They shouldn't incur a cost. The association provides all that during the work parties. In terms of the progress over the last few years, it's been quite quick and really, really pleasing. In year 1, we started with 8 coordinators with just 1 forest site and 1 partnership. The good work that was done there really built trust with landowners, and the news about the Trail Association began to spread. In year 2, we trained some more coordinators, and we actually had landowners coming to us asking if the ATA could come and help manage the trails on their sites. We moved up to 4 sites with 2 different agreements, and in year 3, we moved up to 9 sites and 4 different management partnerships with different landowners in the region, which has been really, really good progress. We've also been part of Take Care of Your Trails every year since we've been in existence, and really lucky, as Mark mentioned, to receive Trail Crew of the Year nomination, and for our current chairman, Tom Cole, to receive the Male Trail Advocate of the Year a couple of years ago. So we're really, really proud to have been recognised that way. In terms of major milestones, we've laid a few out on the next slide. From our first session in 2018, when it was all brand new and we didn't quite know where it was going to go, in 2019, the demand was amazing from the mountain bike community. Every session that we had, we advertised on Eventbrite. It's totally free to come along, but we had a booking system. We were always fully booked. We had waiting lists of people wanting to get involved, and that still continues up to now. In 2019, the sessions delivered over 1,800 hours of trail work, which was really, really amazing and made a really big difference to our local trail network. We also were authorised to use subcontractors in 2019. So for some jobs where the volunteers with hand tools needed some extra assistance, we were able to bring in other professionals to work alongside the crew. And in 2020, this is a landmark where there was an agreement to build a new authorised trail. And this was really, really important to us because, as I mentioned earlier, our region has very, very few purpose-built trails or trails that were built specifically with bikers in mind. And the fact that we're able to do this in an authorised way with landowner permission, all above board, is really, really special. And on the back of that, just this year as well, we received permission to refurbish one of the region's most iconic trails. It's really high profile, but it was built without permission. And because it's been so popular, it's starting to deteriorate a little bit. So the Trail Association will be able to go up and actually improve that trail and refurbish it. And that'll be really, really valuable both for local riders, but also anyone who visits our region. So the milestones there have been really, really positive. We've had as many as 50 people at sessions, and there's been a real snowball effect. The enthusiasm has been amazing. But what about the new trail? As I said, that's a big landmark for us, and it's at Pitfickie. If any of you know the region, that's one of the really traditional mountain bike sites, and it was actually our first and only site when we began operations in 2018. And since we've been involved there, it's really been a process of building trust and understanding with the landowner, both between them and us. And the new trail is actually going to be great for riders because everyone loves a new trail, but it'll also help the landowner address some issues they had, moving riders off a forest access track and onto a purpose-built mountain bike trail. So it'll be more fun for riders and also safer for the landowner. The process to get to this point was extensive though. We had to identify a trail corridor and assess all the options in that corridor. We need to see if it was a safe site to work on. We need to make sure there was no ecological issues that would prevent the building of a trail. We need to see how the new trail would interact with the other trails. And we had to have a series of site visits with the landowners to make sure everyone was on the same page and we all knew what was happening. And the pictures on the right kind of show the progress. The one at the top was a totally blank canvas. The one in the middle is us digging the first section of the new trail, really, really roughly. And it's not built yet, but we have it all mapped and planned out and we've begun work. So that's really, really positive. So in terms of this process, the lessons that we've learned in terms of the successes on the next slide, Mark, are the community engagement and support has been unbelievable. The relationship and credibility with landowners has really, really improved. They have a much better understanding of mountain bikers and what mountain bikers would like to see. But equally, mountain bikers have a better understanding of the issues that land managers and landowners are dealing with. We've been super pleased about our industry recognition and profile, including the IMBA award and featured in some media. Lots of people are developing new skills and competencies, learning how to maintain their trails, understanding what makes a good trail. We have greater awareness of mountain bike as an activity in our local communities. They see the groups of people that are investing time and effort back into nature, which is really, really positively received. We've actually saved some trails that without the Trail Association's intervention, the land manager was looking to remove, which is really, really good for riders. And the relationships have actually improved with other user groups as well, walkers, runners, horse riders. They all see the mountain bike guys out there putting the time in to make sure the tracks don't get muddy, fixing up trails. Actually, Aberdeenshire Trail Association have recently partnered up with a walking path group to do some maintenance as well. And another thing we've really noticed is the diversity of our work parties. Male or female, young or old, it's been really, really well received by everyone. We've had sessions with people in their 60s and 70s. We've had sessions for all female groups. We've had mixed sessions. It's been really, really positive. And the big positive is there's better trails in the region. And it's fostered a sense of stewardship. It's like take care of your trails all year round in some ways. And the community's developed as well. People who met each other on dig days are now riding together, are now friends, and that's an extra dimension that you can't really put a price on. In terms of the challenges, there definitely are challenges, and some builders don't really endorse this model if they've been more used to the way of doing things secretly without permission. It does require time and investment. And certainly we have found that in some instances, landowners and agencies can be frustrating to deal with. They can be slow to respond. Their understanding of mountain biking can be limited. But obviously, the more that you engage with them as a user group, the more the understanding will improve. And generally, the better the communications become. And it can be slower than taking the unauthorized approach of just going out and digging a trail. But actually, in the long term, the sustainability and the quality of trails is, in our experience, enhanced by taking the official approach. And on the next slide, you can just see an example of some of our sessions, some of our community, some of our sites. It's been really, really positive. And on the next slide, you'll see if you do want more information, feel free to either contact myself if you want to know about our unauthorized trails guidance in Scotland, or if you want to find out more about Aberdeenshire Trail Association, you can check them out on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. And thank you very much for taking time to listen.
Thank you very much, Will, for your story. I think, once again, it's a super interesting story. They give some guidance to other groups as well. Maybe good to mention is that there's in Scotland, there's also a guideline for how to manage unauthorized trails. It's of course based on the Scottish practice, but probably there are some good things in it that could be copied to other countries as well, because it is an issue that we've seen in several countries. I think the progress that you've made is just amazing. You know, if you start just Trail Association in 2018, and if you see what you already achieved so far, that's yeah, that makes me a bit jealous in a certain way. We know how long these things can take. Thank you very much. We're getting back to you later on with some more questions. And the last part, or the last guest for this webinar that we invited is Cathy Naveaux from Mountain Bikers Foundation. We're going to do this one a little bit differently. We do a sort of mini interview. Cathy is working for Mountain Bikers Foundation, I think since a year or something. And what we want to show here is more like, okay, what's the approach of a national federation, a national advocacy group that has been really successful in promoting the Take Care of Your Trails campaign, and also growing the number of local chapters of this national group. Cathy, you can unmute yourself and maybe start first. Yeah, with a really short introduction of yourself. So please tell us a little bit more who you are and where you live in France, and a little bit more about the Mountain Bikers Foundation.
Yeah, well, so I'm a French girl, basically. I started properly mountain biking 2 years ago. I say properly mountain biking 2 years ago because 2 years ago I moved into the French Alps, and before that I used to ride my bike on flat trails around Paris. So let's say that I'm now doing enduro, and before that I used to just ride my bike. I don't know how to say that, but so I started pretty late, but I got hooked up on mountain biking really fast. And after moving in the French Alps, I wanted to work in mountain biking industry, but also do good around me, like trail building and stuff like that. And I had the opportunity to apply for that job at the Mountain Bikers Foundation. So we are only 2 employees there for a national foundation. Most of our work are made by volunteers and our local chapters. So we'll tell you a bit more about that. So Mountain Bikers Foundation is basically 12 years old. We are working nationally to develop mountain biking around France, to advocate about sustainable and responsible mountain biking, but also collaboration with territories. Sometimes we have to fight against the restriction. We rather having a dialogue, and we always around the table to talk about what we can do, what we cannot do, and why, and how to do it, to share trails. So this is basically the work of Mountain Bikers Foundation around France, is to advocate for more mountain biking in the right way, in the sustainable way. My role more specifically, so as I said, we are 2 people. We divide our work. My part is also to work a tiny bit with the IMBA and on the European side. I also work with patronage and finding funds for our different field actions. I have many projects, to be honest. Building the community is one of the biggest, and supporting all local chapters with everything we have, tools, advice, meetings, everything we can do around to make things easier for them to work on their location.
Thank you for that, Cathy. Mountain Bikers Foundation has been, I think, one of the member organizations of IMBA that have been really successful in promoting the campaign in France, with a lot of groups participating. I think in the record year, MBF had 44 groups on 45 sites, and more than 500 and almost 600 volunteers, I think, active in 1 month during one of those campaigns. Could you tell a little bit how Mountain Bikers Foundation is promoting this campaign and these trail maintenance sessions? Is there a kind of recipe, or how do you encourage your local chapters to get involved?
Well, the first thing I would say is to keep it simple. That means that we as a national organization decided to take maybe the heavy work or the non so fun work around it, and to promote this event around local crews, local chapters, builders that already are here, clubs, other charities, and told them, okay, you just have to write us an email with what is your project, which it is, who you are, and we will, for example, do the registration online for you. So we decided to do that nationally, because we also realized that for French people, maybe it's not the same around Europe, because I know, for example, in Germany, people speak English more fluently, but for French people, register on an English website is already complicated. So we decided, okay, we're going to centralize all of the energy here. And so that also gives us a good idea of where to activate more. Like, for example, if we don't have anything coming from the south of France, we know a few local clubs, so we can say, hey, there is nothing in the south of France. Would you like to participate, and also push it a bit more? But by this, we have to make it simple for the clubs. So, for example, in France, you need conventions to have a dig day. You need to have the authorization of the land manager or the city, depending who is the landowner. So we provide with those papers that are already, you just need to fill up a date and the name of your local crew, and that's it. So we make it as easy as we can for the participant. So people think, okay, this is quite fun, this is quite simple, I can do this, it's easy for me, I don't have to think too much about it. So this is the first thing, keep it simple. Then I would say keep it fun. We like to challenge ourselves. I know that Take Care of Your Trail, there is some challenge, the Advocate of the Year or trail crew, but we also add some small contests like the funniest pictures that you can take or the biggest group you can be, those kind of things. And we have additional rewards that are pretty small, like t-shirts or goodies or stuff like that. So it stay fun and it stay like a friendly competition. So we try to do that as much as we can.
What we've also noticed is that during the last few years, Mountain Bikers Foundation has been growing. So there are more local or regional chapters. What's the reason for that? Was there simply more need for local advocacy groups, or more need or more interest in building or maintaining or developing trails? Is there an explanation for it? And what's the role of MBF? What kind of support do you provide to those local chapters besides doing all the boring or all the paperwork for take care of your trails?
Well, for the local chapters, it's used to start a lot with restrictions locally, where people were contacting us because mountain biking was banned on the trail or 2 or 3, and we were helping them, going to meetings or giving them a few low advice and stuff like that. And then people will have to fight those kind of things. You have to get a community together locally and to get stronger. And so they needed to be more respected. They needed to have a national organization behind them. So being a local chapter helped also working on that. So it started like that at the beginning, and then more and more people were engaging before it was, if I may say, too late, or also not because there was any restriction, but because they want to develop mountain bikings around their places. And we saw it also a lot during 2020. People had suddenly times and realized they could do something, and the other was the only thing accessible. So they really wanted to get more involved, do something for their community, for the local trails, have a say in the decisions that are made, the new trails that are built. And so they see in us kind of legitimate way to go officially see the city, the mayor, the land owner, and say, okay, we have this value, which are the Mountain Bikers Foundation value. We work toward sustainable trails. We want to do something with you, and this is who we represent, and this is how we work. We also made it easier for people to become local chapters. We made 2 degrees because we realized we also had people that were alone in some part, but doing a lot of things, which were more, for example, meeting wise, not much trail building, but maybe attending meeting, having an MTB voice around the table. And they also wanted to belong to something bigger, and we wanted to reward them for all of the work they were doing. So we were like, okay, we can support you, help you, and make it official for you to be a voice for the Mountain Bikers Foundation. So this is how it grows pretty quickly, and even more quickly last year. To be honest, we double our team on the local in France. Now we have like 16 local chapters, including Relais and what we call Antenne, so the two degrees.
Yeah, and even one in Belgium. So you conquered Belgium as well.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not counting Belgium. And now in Belgium there is going to be 2 actually. So yes, actually we are more around 18.
Yeah. But how important is it to make that transition from like an informal group of people to become like a more official chapter? Is it needed to get the right permissions in place, to get a better result while talking with mayors and municipalities? What's your experience?
It's a better way immediately to be taken more seriously, to be honest, because mountain biking is still not well known around some landowners or managers or cities or mayors. So we could always be seen by people that are not organized or not serious or just having fun with our bikes. And the fact that you get yourself organized, that you get under some values, as I said, the sustainable values, the fact that you you say that you really want to do the things the right way and not only do the things. It changed a lot of the perspective people have on the initiative we can propose, and usually make things way more easier after that.
Thank you. We are close to 9, so I want to open up for a Q&A. I'll stop sharing this one. So if there are any questions, don't be shy and drop them in the chat, and otherwise I'll take the first ones. Let's see. I have one, at least, if I can kick off this part for Will. What has been like the convincing argument that the land manager, well, you know, that was the most important step while they wanted to work with you together, why they wanted to create this sort of partnership with the ATA?
There's probably a few different things. One of them was actually when we started talking with land managers, they maybe had some misconceptions about mountain bikers or what we wanted to do on the land. And actually, when they get to know the group and they get to know mountain bikers generally, they see that we all really like nature and respect nature, and we're actually there. We want to preserve it, and we're mountain biking because we enjoy nature. We're not going to vandalize the site. But in Scotland, because of our access code, when trails are built without permission, the landowner actually incurs a level of liability. And working with a group who've had some training and have some understanding can help them mitigate their liability and responsibilities. And actually, generally, they actually really don't mind people accessing their land as long as it's responsible and well managed, and we can help them manage that and make it a better experience for both riders and land managers.
Mm-hmm. You also mentioned in your presentation that you've been training and educating people, like the trail coordinators. Was that an important kind of element for a land manager to sort of grant you access for the kind of work that you would like to do?
Yeah, I think it showed them that there was a level of competence and understanding, and that reassured them that the people who were approaching them had some knowledge and could successfully carry things out. But if we look right the way back to our first sessions, the land managers or landowners often wanted to attend those sessions to see what we were doing and how we were doing it. And once they saw what we were doing and they realized we had a level of training, they were much more reassured about what we were doing. And further to that, it's been really positive moving forward.
Question for James. Did you have mostly bikers participate in your stress-free trails events of other trail users as well? Let's see.
It's predominantly riders. However, we have a tagline of riders, runners, roamers. It started off as mountain bikers because Dom, the founder, is a big mountain biker, and that's kind of been our steer at the beginning. But we have made a conscious effort this year to broaden it. We've been at some like Kendal Mountain Festival and other places where we're getting all trail user groups, and ultimately it's any trail, any user group, but also we're cleaning hedgerows and car parks, and ultimately it's everywhere. So yeah, we're our kind of photography and our wording at times is more mountain bike centric. However, in time we're expanding our ambassador team, which I'm one of at the moment, and a couple of people that have come on board are predominantly runners, and I've always been called the runner up to now because I also do a lot in the trail running industry with shooting races and reviewing kit. And so I've kind of come in from that angle, predominantly in some respects, even though there's all the mountain bike stuff. So now it's any trail user. And ultimately it's a set of our kind of big thing is do it ourselves. So instead of do it yourself. And we're here to give you information, but it's anyone can take it away. It's not, we do hope to in the future when things kind of return a bit to start doing events again, where we do have formal litter picks at trail centres. However, we want it to be anyone in any city, in any country or village, wherever, and get involved.
What has been the result of like being so the whole storytelling, the way you are positioning the Woburn bike trails on social media? Did it lead to like a huge number of new volunteers, or what was the kind of effect of talking and promoting more about the work that you were doing?
It's a tricky one. Volunteers is always a hard thing to hold on to. We've had a lot of forestry work in the last few years, which shut us down for a while in key areas. We actually found last year was our best year ever because of people not being able to travel, being at home, working from home. People have had a lot more access. So we've had families turn up. We've had a full range of people getting involved. We do find we had our first official dig day was the Saturday just gone, and we had people within the day before just watching our posts and asking, how do you get involved, what do you do? And I get the feeling there's more people looking to get involved, and it goes back to what I was saying earlier about you never know what's going to be that thing that makes someone want to say hello. Mm-hmm. We actively talk a lot because we rarely actually shut a trail when we're working on them, just because of the history of where we are. People just ignore it. Even when we had forestry work and big machines cutting through, people were still trying to ride around them. So it's very much a different attitude. It's a very we will ride attitude around here. But like I say, it's steadily it's building up, and then what we find now is a lot of people that are getting involved like to comment as well on the work that they've done and share the news, and they're telling friends, and ultimately word of mouth, and this goes back to trash trails, word of mouth is key. That's always going to win over any campaign you do online, because it's that human element again. And as much as you can see, you see a nice graphic or a nice photo and it looks really cool, you don't know who you're talking to. Whereas if your friends, the person you ride with, someone you know happens to say, "Oh, I've done that," if you mention it, they're more likely to turn up.
Okay, thanks. I got another question, and it's not addressed to one of you particularly, but how important is having good data? For instance, rider numbers, benefits to local economy, to develop a relationship with your local stakeholders, and what data is needed? Maybe this is one that whether Cathy or Will could say something about what their experience is.
Regarding data, of course, it's important to have good data. The problem is to have them. Basically, it's still very hard to find good sources for your data, and we can have them locally on some space if there is, like, for example, eco-compteur that can count if this is a walker or a mountain biker on the trail, for example. But in France, they're not that common and still very expensive. So, like, for example, we have one part of France where we work with that and we have the numbers there, but we don't have the numbers everywhere in France. We also have very good data regarding the mountain bikes also. That's because the industry is very implicated in that. There is a lot of funding to get those data, and there is a very complete report every year. So that's very useful because we use the number to put them in balance. For example, when we heard that there is so many more mountain bikes, e-mountain bikes on the trails, and they may be the one responsible for damage or whatever, we can still tell through those numbers that this is actually not quite true. The number shows that yes, there is an increase on selling in mountain bike, but regular mountain bike are still the main sport, or this is, for us, we consider it at the same spot. That's still the main way to go. So very important to get, but very hard to get, to be honest, on the national resources. And we in the mountain bikers We wish we can have them one day. We're working on some data regarding, for example, the impact on the trail, the impact on the, how can I say that? Sorry, I'm losing my word in English tonight. I'm so sorry. I'm usually way better than that, but maybe I'm impressed. So yeah, we're trying to get as much data as we can, but it's not always easy.
Yeah, that's certainly true. This is a discussion that we have with all the IMBA Europe members as well. We try to gather as much data, for instance, as possible of last year to see, okay, what has been the impact of COVID, whether it's on participation or drill usage in certain areas, etc. It won't be perfect, but this is something that we collectively work on with the different member organizations. We have another one, and then we do 2 more questions, and then we are finished for today, I think. There is another one. This is about, this is an interesting one. When it comes to unsanctioned trail building, do you think mountain biking needs a concerted campaign that covers retailers and shops and brands? This is an open question. James, you are working in the industry. Will, you have some partners in the industry as well. What's your opinion on this? Is this something that we should do? Is it something that should come from the industry itself, or?
I think it would be great to see. I think we all know this year that cycling has been booming. It's been growing through the coronavirus situation. People want to get out and access trails. So it would be great to see more awareness or campaigns from brands or shops to promote the work that Trash-Free Trails or trail associations are doing to keep nature in good condition, to look after our trails, because essentially that's providing a lot of opportunity and a lot of good, really, really nice spaces for people to go out and enjoy the outdoors. So maybe rather than a campaign against unsanctioned building, maybe a promotion of the good work that people are doing in an authorised and organised way in partnership with landowners. That's just my point of view.
It's a complicated one. It's probably the best way of saying it. We saw when Josh Bryceland a few months ago came out to say that he was taking over maintenance of an area. It's agreed all the parties. He got slated for being someone who's encouraged you to effectively do the opposite up to now. For the brand, I can see it from brand side, and I can see it from our trail association side. I can see it from all parts. I think you got to think about long term. There's a section who have always done it up to now. There's you could say an age range, because that's always been the way. We have it locally. It's always, well, we've done this for 30 years, or this is the way we've always done it. And just saying no is not gonna. It doesn't go anywhere. And then obviously there's a lot of people that haven't been able to go anywhere, because there's been a huge increase in the last year of people doing stuff locally, and they may not know either. They just may not know. They may be naive. So I think it's with all these things, it's thinking long term, and personally it'll be a slow introduction and doing it so that we can actually, like I say, it's focusing on the good of what you can do. Because ultimately I've seen it on so the Forestry England, or Forestry Commission in England, own a lot of the trail centres, and there's a huge amount of unsanctioned work happening, or people riding them and so on. And I was at one a week ago riding, and you could just see it. It was almost like you knew where the trail went, and you're riding the fly road to it, and it was almost like a mosaic the whole way along of just trails either side. I've never seen anything like it. Now they're putting out strong communications on their social media saying, stop this. And 99%, I've read through 500 comments, 99% of them are sticking 2 fingers up to them and saying, we're going to do this until everything's black graded, until it's basically an extreme bike park. And so that you're not going to win like that. I think it's, you got to, like Will said, it's looking at the benefits, looking at the positives, championing those people, but also realizing that you're not going to change things overnight. And, there's a long history of things being kept quiet. And I saw in the chat popped up, I can't see it about Trail Forks. I'm involved with Trail Forks. I'm one of their regional admins. Yeah, that's been a huge issue. It used to be only sanctioned, and they flicked it to unsanctioned. And that's, you know, we've had that locally. Our landowner kicked off because, and then, yeah, I managed to become admin the day before he kicked off, and so we hid it because we had people traveling around the country here, and no offense, the riding's not exactly amazing where we live because it's flat as a pancake, and there's people traveling past mountainous areas to come to here because they found it online and heard about it. And so there's that whole no Strava signs and trees as, you know, of yesteryear, and now everything's online and everything's being shared. And so, yeah, it, like you say, it's making things private again and making things quiet, because then that will kill some of the noise, and then combine that with positivity. It's great. Like I say, it's a multi-angled thing, and there's no one bullet to solve it. It's complicated, and I think we also have to accept there's always going to be an element. But if we can reduce it and get more people doing the good thing, hopefully in time that'll develop. But yeah, that's my ramble. I'm not really sure what you just said.
So I hope as well, like even like a relatively small campaign like Take Care of Your Trails can make a start with sharing those best practices and identify them. Not just the three that we've heard tonight, but there are way more that we can find all across Europe also, and also have done in the previous years. And you're right, you cannot change, you know, this thing overnight. We know more what the mountain bikers want. We've seen more people getting organized in the mountain bike community, which is a positive thing, I would say. And we also know that there's a need for mountain bikers to progress in their sport. Part of one of the surveys of European project last year showed that quite clearly. You know, yeah, there's definitely beginners want to have like blue trails, but especially kids, they are progressing so fast in their sport. So they are quite quickly looking for more demanding, more technical trails. The way to work on it is like, well, what I think the Aberdeenshire Trail Association is doing is recognizing that need, and also the need to form these kind of partnership with land managers and address those needs and issues. It's probably for the long term, what you say, the only sustainable way to move forward. And yeah, we're not there yet, but I think we're on our way in a positive and a good direction. It's 9:10, so we're gonna close this session. It has been what I said in the introduction has been the first time that we've did this kind of webinar, which is in a certain way, in retrospective, a bit strange, because I think there's a lot to share and a lot of good experience where we all can learn from. And normally we had our physical summits, which we haven't been able to organize for the last 2 years for reasons well known. The closing words for this is just a big thank you for all the speakers, but also all the people that participated in this webinar tonight. I know many of them have already been involved in the Take Care of Your Trails campaign or signed up for this year. I want to give all those people a big compliment, because the campaign, the success of the campaign is made locally by all those people who are contributing their precious leisure, spare time, and doing a good thing for the mountain bike community. If there's a need, then we certainly gonna schedule more of these meetings. Maybe not before the official kickoff of the campaign. We're running Take Care of Your Trails for the full month of May. We hope to see way more groups and individuals signing up and do something positive and give back to the trails in May. And we're gonna highlight as much of these great initiatives as we can on our social media and website, etc. I see some final remarks. Yeah. What I've said, this session is recorded, so we make sure that it's going to be on the Take Care of Your Trails website, so people can find the link. And who hasn't seen it, you can easily share it with your colleagues or your volunteers of the trail crew. That's it for now. If there are any other questions, don't hesitate to drop us an email. Use info@imbaeurope.com. We'll put it in the chat as well if there are things that you need some support with for the next campaign. Thank you all for participating, and hope to see you once physically again instead of all these virtual meetings. Have a good evening, all.
Thank you, bye.